There is something about a forest at dusk, the way the light doesn't fade so much as get swallowed, that reminds you the dark was always there, just waiting for the sun to leave. Tonight I have 3 stories sent in by viewers, all of them set in the woods, all of them unresolved. The third story, I want to warn you about the third story. It's not what happens in the forest that makes it disturbing. It's what came out of it, and what it knew. Stay with me. The marker at mile 9. I've been a long-distance trail runner for about 6 years. Nothing extreme, 50 milers, the occasional 100. I know how to be alone out there. I know the difference between the forest settling and something moving through it. This was October 2021, somewhere in the Allegheny National Forest in northwestern Pennsylvania. I was doing a solo training run on a section of the North Country Trail, a 22-mile out and back starting at a trailhead off Route 321. I'd done this stretch twice before. I knew the terrain. I left the trailhead at 6:15 in the morning. Headlamp, 2 handhelds, enough calories for 4 hours. Standard. The trail climbs for the first 4 miles and then flattens into a ridge that runs through old-growth hemlock. I love that section. The trees are massive and the canopy is so dense that even in October the forest floor barely changes color. I hit the ridge around mile 5 and I noticed the first one. A stick, maybe 3 feet long, driven vertically into the ground at the edge of the trail. Dead center in the path. I stopped, checked my GPS, looked around. Nothing else unusual. I figured it was a survey marker of some kind, or maybe other hikers messing around. I ran past it. Mile 7. Another one. Same height. Same placement, exactly in the center of the trail. I picked this one up and tossed it into the brush. I told myself it was coincidence. I kept running. Mile 9 is where the trail bends around a rock outcropping, and there's a small clearing to the left where I usually stop to eat. I came around the bend and stopped. There were 11 of them. 11 vertical sticks arranged in a perfect arc around the edge of the clearing, each one about 2 feet apart, each one exactly the same height. The ground between them had been disturbed, not dug up, just pressed down, in a wide circular pattern, like something large had been resting there. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds. I wasn't thinking clearly. I turned around and ran back toward the trailhead. At mile 7, I passed the spot where I'd thrown the second stick. It was back. Upright. Center of the trail. I ran the last 7 miles faster than I've ever run anything. I reported it to the Forest Service office in Warren. A ranger took notes. She didn't seem surprised, which bothered me more than anything she could have said. She asked me to confirm the GPS coordinates, wrote something down, and told me they'd look into it. I asked her if they'd had other reports from that section. She said, and I'm going to repeat this exactly, we've had reports from that section. Then she thanked me for coming in. I haven't gone back. I don't plan to. But I've thought about those sticks more times than I can count. Specifically, I've thought about the 11 in the clearing. The arc they formed. They were pointing inward. That next story comes from a mother in North Carolina, and I'll tell you now, what disturbs me most about it isn't what happened in the forest. What my daughter brought home. My name is Carla. I'm a middle school science teacher in Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm a single mother to a 9-year-old girl named Maddie. I'm telling this story because I need someone to hear it. I've told 2 people in my life and neither of them knew what to say. Last summer, July, during the week after school let out, Maddie and I spent for days at a rental cabin near the Pisgah National Forest. It was the kind of trip I'd been promising her for 2 years. She loves animals, loves plants, loves being outside. She was in her element. On the third morning, I let her walk the short loop trail behind the cabin property alone. It was marked, clearly maintained, less than a mile. I sat on the porch with coffee and could hear her for most of it. She was 9, not 6. It felt fine. She came back after about 40 minutes. Happy. Flushed. She'd seen a box turtle, she said. And a nice man who'd shown her something in the trees. I put the coffee down. I asked her to tell me exactly what happened. She said a man had been standing off the trail, not far, watching her. She wasn't scared of him, she said, because he was smiling. He had called her over and pointed up into the canopy of a large oak. There was a bird's nest up there, she said. With eggs. Then she said, and she was entirely calm when she told me this, he knew my name, Mom. He said, Maddie, come look. We were at the cabin 3 days. We had not been to a store, a restaurant, nowhere local. There was no way. I asked her what he looked like. She described him the way children describe adults, tall, older, regular clothes. She said he had something in his hand but she didn't know what it was. She said he watched her walk back down the trail until she reached the cabin. I called the county sheriff's office. A deputy came out. They walked the trail and found nothing. We left that afternoon. But here is what I haven't said yet. Here is the part one haven't been able to say out loud without my hands going cold. 2 weeks after we got home, I was doing laundry. Maddie's backpack from the trip, the small one she'd taken on that walk. I entered the front pocket. There was a folded piece of paper inside. It wasn't ours. I opened it. It was a hand-drawn map. Simple pencil lines. It showed a trail, the loop trail behind the cabin, accurately drawn, with the oak tree marked with an X. And in the top corner, printed in small neat letters, was Maddie's name. And below her name, our home address in Asheville. I called the sheriff again. I still have the paper in a sealed bag in my closet. No one has given me any explanation. Maddie hasn't asked to go back to the forest. She hasn't asked me what I found in her backpack, either. I don't know if that means she doesn't know, or if it means she does. The last story was sent in by a man who spent 6 months trying to find a rational explanation before he gave up and wrote to me. The sound it made when it spoke. I want to be straightforward about something before I tell this. I'm not someone who believes in much. I'm a civil engineer. I spend my days in tolerances and load calculations. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand that I have genuinely tried, to explain what I heard. I cannot. September 2019. I was in the Superior National Forest in northeastern Minnesota on a solo canoe trip. For days, 3 nights, a route I'd done twice before along the Boundary Waters. I'm comfortable in remote environments. I carry a satellite communicator. I do not panic. Night 2, I was camped on a small island about 200 yards from the nearest shoreline. Wind had dropped completely. The lake was still enough that I could hear my own heartbeat if I concentrated. I was in the tent but not sleeping, reading with a headlamp, maybe 10:30 at night. I heard something call out from the tree line on the mainland shore. Not a loon. I know what loons sound like. Not a wolf, I've heard wolves. This was structured. That's the word I keep using when I try to describe it. It was structured the way language is structured. Rising, then falling, then a pause, then rising again. Like something that had listened to human speech for a very long time and was attempting to reproduce the cadence without using actual words. I sat up. I turned my headlamp off. It called again. Same pattern. And then after the pause, there was a second sound beneath it. Quieter. Closer. From my island. I did not move for a very long time. I controlled my breathing the way you would in any situation that requires stillness. I told myself it was two animals calling to each other. Some explanation I couldn't name yet but could find later. Then the closer sound spoke. I'm going to be precise here because I've replayed this thousands of times and I need to say it correctly. It wasn't a word. It wasn't language. But the shape of it, the shape was a question. The same way a sentence lifts at the end. That lift. Like it was waiting for an answer. I didn't answer. I don't know why, instinct, maybe, but something in me understood that answering would be wrong. That answering would be the mistake. The sound from the mainland came once more, lower, almost frustrated. Then both sounds stopped. I sat in that tent with my hand on my knife, not because I thought a knife would help, but because I needed something to hold, until the sky started to go grey. I packed before sunrise and paddled out. I've looked. I've read everything. Infrasound phenomena, unknown primate vocalization theories, documented audio anomalies in that part of Minnesota. I've gone looking for an answer because the alternative is that something was standing on my island in the dark, deciding whether to continue. And the thing that has stayed with me, the thing I cannot metabolize, is this. When I was breaking down my tent in the early grey light, I found footprints at the edge of the island. At the waterline. Large. Bipedal. Facing the tent. Facing toward me. But only facing in. There were no prints going out. Whatever left them, it didn't walk away. 3 people. 3 separate forests. 3 things that haven't been explained, and may not be. What strikes me, listening to these accounts, is the detail. The specificity. The way each person reaches for the most ordinary language they have and finds it isn't enough. I want to ask you something tonight. Have you ever been alone in the woods, genuinely alone, and had the sudden, certain feeling that you were being assessed? Not threatened. Not chased. Just studied. If you have, or if you have a story of your own, leave it in the comments. I read them. All of them. New stories arrive every day. Subscribe if you want them. And if you're heading into the forest this weekend, pay attention to what goes quiet and when.